Honorary President of the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation.
Good evening. Oh, good. I'm so glad it's not Sweet Carol to celebrate with us. I know that every year that everyone here has so many things that they could be doing, and so we really are honored, and we really take great pride in the fact that you choose to spend this evening with us. And this year, given the fact that Game of Thrones is finishing, we're even more honored than usual. I look forward to this night every year because I know that tomorrow I will, like all of you, be more inspired to act with more courage and compassion in my own life and with you all to renew our commitment to public service. And this year is extra special. Not only has the woman that we honor dedicated her life to the ideals my father lived by, but I have probably as big a crush on her as she had on President Kennedy when she wore her prom dress to the Oval Office. This celebration would not be possible without the support of everyone in this room, not just on this night, but throughout the year. The work of the John F. Kennedy Library and Foundation is a labor of love for our family, and all of you make it possible. I would especially like to thank Brian Kennedy for your outstanding generosity and leadership of this dinner. And I'd also like to salute the men and women of Raytheon who have always supported the Kennedys, the library, and who I saw working daily to protect America as far away as Japan and all around the world. So thank you. I want to thank Ron Sargent for his leadership of the foundation. We learned so much from your wise, quiet skill, and we're so grateful for your generosity and commitment. I want to thank the board of the foundation, especially my husband, Ed Schlossberg, who didn't realize he was marrying the library 33 years ago, but who has worked so hard and whose vision has made it a model for the National Archives system in many important ways. Thank you, David Ferrio, for supporting all of Ed's ideas. When we gather each year, I'm reminded of the most important lesson my grandmother taught us, that politics is about family. The people in politics couldn't do it without their families, and tonight that's more true than ever. The D'Alessandros and the Kennedys go back longer than I've been alive. They had a shared set of values, a belief in the dignity of each person, and a commitment to using the political process to improve the lives of all Americans. President Kennedy would never have made it to the White House without the support of mayors all across the country like Mayor D'Alessandro. So our family would like to salute all the family members of public officials that are here tonight, especially the members of the Pelosi family, starting with Paul. But we're so happy to have all of you here and supporting the honoree, and it makes it so much more fun for her and for all of us. So thank you for coming. I also want to recognize the members of the Profile and Courage Award Committee. I can't say they worked very hard this year since there wasn't much debate about who our winners should be, but we're so grateful for their commitment to the process and their willingness to help the library. As we try to make sense of these divided times, the history here in this library can offer us a way forward, not by repeating what was done before, but by learning how America met past challenges and what qualities we need to overcome our own. My father believed that the most important is courage, the strength to do the right thing no matter the cost. So many of you here, your parents and grandparents, stood with my father, with my Uncle Teddy, as they fought for justice and peace and a more welcoming and inclusive America. Now that work is more important than ever, and it is being done by a new generation. And I want to recognize all the members of Congress who are working with the Speaker to carry this work forward, and ask you all to please stand and be recognized. I know she's so happy that you're all here to share this night, so thank you. Often courage is not rewarded by some who would prefer that politicians act to serve a narrow or powerful interest. But when courage is recognized, it ennobles us all. That's what's so inspiring about tonight and what makes Speaker Pelosi the most consequential woman in American political history. I saw her inspire a nation of Japanese women when she visited, just as she has inspired generations of Americans, men and women. No one advocated as strongly for American workers, for human rights, for peace and security, or for California rice as she did when she came to Tokyo. She has consistently acted in service of our highest principles and our most vulnerable citizens. She has suffered defeats, but she has never given up. Thanks to her courage, we have health care for all Americans, the most diverse Democratic Congress in American history, and the strength to stand firm against the administration's assault on the rule of law. Now I would like to ask Jack Schlossberg to come up and present the award. Jack has embraced the work of this library and this award. He works harder than anyone to make sure it stays relevant today. He contributes his unique perspective and insight, and he contributes it loudly. I am so grateful to him for bringing joy to the effort, and I'm proud of him and all that he is becoming. So thank you, Jack, for helping me out.
I think we're all pretty surprised, myself included, to know that you watch Game of Thrones, Mom. I had no idea. I have the best mother in the entire world. Everyone says that. Everybody says that, but for me, it's actually true. She does so much for me and my sisters, for my dad, for the library, for our whole family. I learned so much from watching her in Japan, and where she brought her intellect, humor, and curiosity to everything that she did. She and my father work really hard to make this a vibrant institution, and we owe them both another round of applause, I think. Thank you for being here. This event is always really special for me, and not only because it's always the last thing before me in summer vacation, but it's also a moment to draw wisdom from President Kennedy, to carry on his legacy, to celebrate in our time what he most admired in his, and that's political courage. This is my 6th year serving on the committee and presenting the award, and in that time we've honored 2 presidents, 2 mayors, a congressman, and a governor. Each made very difficult decisions to put the national interest above their own. Each represents the best in our politics. They were all courageous, they were all inspiring, and they were all men. But tonight we honor the most important woman in American political history. And a profile on courage if there ever was one. When we think of political courage, we often imagine someone standing up for what's right when no one else will, who does so in the face of intense opposition, and who then suffers the consequences. Defeated, run out of town, but with their integrity and their conscience intact at least. That's one way to do it, but I like Speaker Pelosi's model better. 17-term Congresswoman and twice elected Speaker of the House of Representatives, hers is a career of courage, spanning decades of change and challenge, inspiring hope and withstanding hate, delivering victories and surviving setbacks, all in service to our country. We know her story well, but for anyone who doesn't, makes history and then keeps winning. After working in politics for a decade, she was first elected to the House in 1987, one of just 23 women elected that year. She hasn't lost a race since. In 2002, she became House Minority Leader. In 2006, she became the first ever female speaker, a title which she reclaimed earlier this year. And yeah. Her political successes are historic, but they are not what makes her a profile in courage. Instead, it's what she's done with it, the progress she's achieved, the difference that she's made in people's lives, the example of leadership that she's provided to all of us. She's responsible for major legislative achievements, but chief among these is the Affordable Care Act. There's a reason why presidents have tried and failed to do this for 70 years. To borrow a phrase and to make sure that I'm on theme, that's not because it was easy. It's because it was really, really, really hard. Speaker Pelosi was critical in passing the bill, and I always heard that, but I did some research to find out what made that true. My fellow distinguished committee member, David Axelrod, told me in no uncertain terms. He said there would be no Affordable Care Act without Nancy Pelosi. Period, end of story. When it looked like in the winter of 2010 as if passage in the House was hopeless, she quietly, brilliantly navigated a narrow path to victory, painstakingly putting together one vote at a time. She knew her caucus intimately, which buttons to push and how to push them. That was another thing that I've always heard about Speaker Pelosi, that she's the master vote getter, total control of everybody. She says jump, they say how high. I wanted to know her secret and how she does it, so I asked a few of her colleagues in the House. They told me she never, ever stops working. They said she knows how to count. The secret doesn't depend on some hidden technique. Her secret is that she goes over and over and over the count herself, and if there aren't 218 votes, she starts over, as if she has none. When that happened during the healthcare fight, she told her staff, "Give me the list and leave me alone." And not just on healthcare. In 2008, with the nation on the brink of financial collapse, she committed to President Bush that she would deliver votes for the TARP bailout. Just before that vote, she told her caucus the following: "The American people sent us here to do a job for them, and that's what we must do. We will vote today, and I don't want to hear how you cannot support this bill because you may lose your seat in Congress. That is not why we were sent here." Ultimately, as Congressman Kennedy, my cousin, who represents this area so well, told me, she believes political power isn't to have and to hold, it's to be used because government can make lives better. So doing her job and not just keeping it and demanding the same of others, that is what makes her a profile in courage. And if that all weren't enough, we've watched this year as Speaker Pelosi summons the courage to protect the fundamental character and promise of our government when others attack them openly, abandon them quietly, or violate them deliberately. She is steadfast in her commitment to procedure, in her defense of the Constitution, and inserting the proper role of the legislative branch. She has met cynicism with optimism. She has met mudslinging attacks with respect and substance, and infighting with her party with a commitment to it, its values and platform. Her discipline, focus, and integrity stand out, raise the bar, and set an example for my generation to follow. We're all so proud to celebrate her tonight, and I'm honored to present her with the 2019 John F. Kennedy Profiles in Courage Award. Tatiana and my dad.
Do we light the lantern?
I just said to the Strasburgs, I don't see any reason for me to make a speech right now. all those beautiful things that I accept the compliments on behalf of all of my colleagues in the House of Representatives who made all of our accomplishments possible with their courage. Before, though, acknowledging and thanking the family, for those who have been part of my journey to this moment, too, I must first pay tribute to the president who inspired this award. When we think back across the best and hardest passages of the past more than a half century, we not only remember the singular presence of John F. Kennedy, but we can see, as if it were only yesterday, how the patriotism, brilliance, self-deprecating wit, and the natural grace he symbolized and conveyed truly did captivate and inspire the country and the world. How he renewed our public life and the very definition of America itself. Our presence now here this evening in this ceremony this year inevitably and preeminently celebrates and honors him. Jack, I love what your mother had to say about you. It makes us all so proud to see you. Caroline, how proud your mother and father would be to have seen the dignity with which you represented the United States in Japan. To witness that glorious day when the people of Tokyo flooded the streets, to witness you, to watch you travel by, not chariot, but what is it, carriage, travel by carriage to present your credentials to the Emperor of Japan, to witness America's best compliment to Japan. Thank you, Ed, Tatiana, and Rose, for being your own manifestations of excellence in everything that you do. Thank you, Ron Sargent, for being such an important leader of the foundation and for regaling us this evening with the goals of the foundation, but also the participation of so many in your important work. And that is an applause line. There you go. And to Tom Kennedy for your leadership and for welcoming us to this extraordinary place. Let me express as well, but also thank you to Raytheon for helping us honor our oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Thank you for your extraordinary leadership in this community. And let me express my abiding gratitude to the Profile and Courage Award Committee. I think they really did a good job. I'm now in my new mode of being sort of not the modest woman in politics, but I think they did a good job. I'm happy about it. And I want to extend my congratulations to Elazar Kramer for being selected as the 2019 Profile and Courage Essay Contest winner. Beautiful, beautiful essay. And he wrote about one of the earliest women to serve in Congress, one of the first 6 women, and she was the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee. It's a joy to share this celebration with those in my family who are my foundation and my heart. My husband, Paul, husband of 55 years. Our children, Nancy, Corinne, Christine, Jacqueline, Paul, and Alexandra. Our grandchildren, Madeline, Alexander, Paul, and Thomas. Our other grandchildren, busy with their studies and exams, but here in spirit, Liam, Sean, and Ryan, Bella, and Octavio. And also our sons-in-law who are here, Jeff and Nahil. Also like family to me are Congresswoman Anna Eshoo and Senator Chris Dodd. Were friends long before any of us were in Congress, and I'm so honored that they're here with us tonight. Well, I'm pleased to be joined by so many members of our official family in Congress. We are joined by present and former members from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Texas, California, Maryland, and when I include former members of Congress, I'm including the Secretary of State, John Kerry, is a former member of Congress, and including Congressman Joe Kennedy, who eloquently enacts in his generation the Kennedy commitment to be a voice for the voiceless, Joe Kennedy. The Kennedy family has given so much to America's history and to America's future. We remain in the awe of the courage that is the Kennedy constant, their courage to accept the best and the saddest that God's will has descended upon them, and their courage to be a model of faith and hope. Caroline, I especially remain inspired by the courage of your grandmother, Rose, your mother, Jacqueline, especially on this day, and by your courage, Madam Ambassador. Officially, I prize the distinction of being associated with past recipients who over 3 decades have been recognized for embodying that most admirable of human virtues, courage. There are many who have been honored from the Congress of the United States, but one whose courage some of us here have saw close up and personal among this Legion of Honor was our friend, the late Jack Murtha, a proud deficit hawk, Tom, a deficit hawk who was recognized for his courage to speak out publicly against the war in Iraq. Before him came the peacemakers of Northern Ireland, John Hume and George Mitchell. Last month, while in Ireland, I brought a delegation. Richie Neal was the head of our delegation on the 21st anniversary of the Good Friday Accords. I was privileged to address the Dáil, their parliament, the Irish parliament, where I, at that time, invoked the words that President Kennedy spoke in that very chamber in the summer of 1963. This is what he said. The supreme reality of our time is our indivisibility as children of God and our common vulnerability on this planet. The supreme reality of our time is our indivisibility as children of God and our common vulnerability on this planet. An imperative for us to do the right thing. Now I want to express my gratitude in personal terms as to what this award means to me. When I was a girl in Catholic school in Baltimore, the Irish nuns from Boston would always sing the praises of the Kennedy family. This was a long time ago. In grade school, it was they who introduced us to the book Profiles in Courage, which had such an impact on me and on my generation. In high school, I had the privilege to meet Senator Kennedy when he came to Baltimore. My father was the mayor, and I got to sit at the head table. Everyone, his voice reverberate through the rotunda of the Capitol with that beautiful, that Speaker of the House, I would be given this Profile in Courage award. Profile in Courage. Courage. Courage is in the DNA of America. Courage and the optimism and hope that go with it, which are the shaping spirits of the American experience. President Kennedy had the courage, optimism, and hope when he pledged to America that we would land on the moon before the decade was out. Imagine the courage. When President Kennedy challenged us all, America, to go to the moon in his speech at Rice, he spoke words that today are our constant inspiration. My colleagues will recognize that because they're like the first page of all of our innovation initiatives. He said, "The vows of this nation can only be fulfilled if we in this nation are first, and therefore we intend to be first. In short, our leadership in science and in industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligation to ourselves and to others, all require that we make this effort." Today, those words are the preamble, as I said, to our innovation agendas and our constant motivation to address the urgency of the climate crisis, which is the challenge of our day. President Kennedy knew that America's success in that venture would take us well beyond the moon. It would solve problems here on Earth as well. Courage is in the DNA of America. It was in the DNA of our founders. It was manifested when they declared independence premised on equality, which was the first time any nation had done that before. When they declared and waged and won a war on the greatest naval power that existed at the time. When they declared not only a new nation, but a new order for the ages, which they inscribed in the Great Seal of the United States, Noble Order Seclorum, forever. Optimism, hope, courage. Imagine the audacity of their vision and their trust. It was not arrogance, but courage that launched this historic experiment in democracy, the United States of America. America has always been a place of courage, from the immigrants who crossed the seas to take a chance on America, many knowing that they would never see their homes again, to the pioneers who crossed the trackless continent. That saga has its scars, but without their courage, we would not be in America from sea to shining sea. To our heroes who protect our communities, our countries, our nurses, teachers, doctors, parents, our men and women in uniform, and their families and caregivers. Personally, to my father, and thank you, Caroline, for mentioning him, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., who blazed a trail as one of the first Italian Americans in Congress, the first Catholic mayor of Baltimore, who would one day be sworn into the Kennedy administration by the president himself in the Oval Office. To my colleagues, and that's just an example. That's just an example. It's to my colleagues in the Congress who had the courage to elect me the first woman Speaker of the House. I don't like when people say I'm the highest ranking woman, this or that, because I thought by now we would certainly have a woman president, and hopefully that will be sometime in the near future. However, it did take courage from my colleagues to elect a speaker. When I became speaker the first time, a Massachusetts Democrat, Father Drinan, spoke to members at a mass the day before my swearing in at my alma mater, Trinity University in Washington. My roommate Celia and Rita are here. He reminded us of our responsibility to the children. He said, now maybe we have a woman speaker that everybody's focus will be on children, urging us never to forget Christ's personal love of children. He said, as I look around this church, I see many people with conviction and commitment to their ideals. But what is important is the third C, the courage to act upon those ideals. In my public life, I have seen leaders who understood that their duty was not to do what was easy, but what was right, especially when my colleagues had the courage to support the Affordable Care Act, the health care reform that Senator Kennedy called the cause of our lives. When he left us, the press came to me and said, well, I guess it's over for you in the Affordable Care Act. I said, not at all. This, as Senator Kennedy said over and over, the cause of our lives. This is the challenge to our generation. We will not let this opportunity pass. And they said, well, it doesn't look possible. How do you intend to do this? I said, well, we are going to do it, and we're not going to let any obstacles stand in our way. So if we go up to the gate is locked, we push open the gate. If we don't push open the gate, we'll leapfrog over it, pole vault over it. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in. But we're not letting anything stand in the way of passing affordable health care for all Americans. So when we did, they came in and they said, "Which one did you do?" And I said, "Actually, we only pushed open the gate. We were able to do that because of the courage of my colleagues in the Congress of the United States." And if most of the reason I'm receiving this award is because of passing the Affordable Care Act, I share this award with all of my colleagues, Democratic colleagues in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. But it wasn't just us. So many of you were there with us helping to push open that gate. At the grassroots level, the mobilization of little lobbyists, little children with pre-existing conditions, the nuns, God bless, thank God for the nuns, just so many healthcare providers, so many people standing with us, pushing open the gate. A real demonstration of what President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. Well, the public was with us in pushing open that gate, which made a big difference in the health and economic well-being of America's working families. And so this, my colleagues, they were all profiles in courage. They were all profiles in courage. Let us assume those who voted for this legislation. In their name, and in the name of all who hold fast to an ideal in the midst of the storm, I accept this award. I do so with a word about what we face in these unprecedented years. In the darkest hours of the American Revolution, Thomas Paine wrote, "The times have found us." Found our founders in the Revolution. They found Lincoln at the time of the Civil War. They found other times in the World War II. They found leaders in our country. Now, we don't place ourselves in those categories of our founders or Lincoln, but we do recognize the urgency of now in terms of what the challenge is to the Constitution of the United States. And so they have found us, the times have found us to strengthen America. It is not about politics. It is about patriotism. How fitting it is that this award takes the form of a stunning silver lantern, Ed, symbolizing the fire that lights the world. You recognize those words. Thank you for this award, which I will proudly display in the Speaker's office of the Capitol of the United States as a shining symbol of our obligation to meet the challenges of the times that have found us. Thank you. God bless the memory of President Kennedy and the family that he loved. May we heed his words that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. Thank you all so much for this honor. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Ambassador Kennedy. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi, for an inspiring evening. I am grateful for all of you for joining us here tonight. We look forward to welcoming you all to the Kennedy Library at next year's May dinner. Good night.